Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets. So you can subscribe to the channel and click that notifications button and get a notification whenever a new video is uploaded. I've got a brand new webcam. You know, a few of you complained about the sound quality, so I've got one of those Blue Yeti, the top of the range USB microphones apparently, and everyone's told me how the sound's improved. A couple of you were still unhappy with the webcam, so I thought I'd get a new webcam. But I'm clueless, I told you, when it comes to the technology. And this webcam to me looks shocking. I don't know what's going on. For a start, I look grey. Everything looks grey, like whitewashed sort of grey. I've tried to alter the brightness, but you can't alter like the saturation or anything. It's got this massively wide view. Can you see it has like a proper wide view? It's like you can't get closer. It's weird. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. If anyone knows what they're doing with these things, I'd appreciate the advice. I'm going to try this webcam on another laptop because it looked different on the other laptop. So I'm going to do a second video discussing a second topic right after this one. Again, it will be the same webcam on a different laptop. Let me know what you think. I want feedback, guys. Let's talk boxing. I was checking out G-Man Boxing's video. I've been catching up with a lot of videos. I've fallen behind a little bit with a few videos, so this is a little bit out of date. A couple of days past its sell-by date, you could say. But we're going to discuss it thematically. G-Man Boxing's video, Billy Joe Saunders needs another fight or two before Canelo. That's Tyson Fury comment. So I came across this through his channel, and basically Tyson Fury saying that Billy Joe needs another couple of fights to be sharp, to be active, and if he is, he'll punch Canelo all over the ring. But he needs to be sharper by getting more active, fighting another fight or two before taking on Canelo Alvarez. I find this really, really interesting. A really interesting comment to make. Let's not forget that Tyson Fury was the sort of guy, when he talks about himself, he's always said, I could come back when I'm out of shape, out overweight, and batter all these heavyweights. And he did indeed come back after, you know, losing 10 stone, having two quick tune-up fights where he was, you know, in terrible shape, before taking on Deontay Wilder. They were fitness fights rather than actual fights of trying to find his sharpness and his range and things like that. And he jumped in with Deontay Wilder. Is Tyson Fury saying that Billy Joe can't do that against Canelo? You know, is that interesting? You know, am I over-analysing? Does he not believe? Is it a case of them potentially getting in excuses early for their friend? For his friend? Because one thing I'll say about Billy Joe, although he's a very, very confident fighter and he's very brash, he's not quite as brash in the build-up to this as he has been in the past. Is it because he doesn't want to scupper the fight? He doesn't want to annoy Canelo in the zone and, you know, get into a situation where he's hated by them and they don't want to give him a payday? Or is it Billy Joe not being as brash because he's not as confident? He's still talking about him wanting to win and believing he could win. Listen, if you were to ask me a few years ago, I've been saying I'd said for a long time, Billy Joe Saunders would beat Canelo Alvarez. I said this a long time ago. However, Canelo has advanced quite a bit at the limitations that I felt he had that Billy Joe would have exploited. So we'll discuss those briefly. And Billy Joe also, the things that he was great at that could expose those limitations, for me, maybe there's a slight diminishing factor to that at the moment. So Billy Joe's movement and his ability to consistently change angles. He's a brilliant fencer, Billy Joe. You know, someone used this term on here not long ago. I was actually having a debate with a Fight Film who used to be Precise Puncher. And now he's got this other account, and we were having a debate about Billy Joe. He doesn't rate Billy Joe, I do. And somebody else commented, and I really do apologize that I can't remember who it was. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Leave your comment here below if you do see this video. He was basically referring to Billy Joe as a fencer, and he meant it as an insult. To me, that's not an insult. To me, that is a compliment, because when it comes to various sports, there are various transferable skills that a fencer has that a boxer could seriously do with. A fencer is light on his feet, has really, really rapid change of direction, great balance, great distance control, foot speed, like we said. So it's not just about being light on your feet, it's about being fast on your feet. It's about being able to understand when you have to be defensively responsible while you're attacking. So it's about being able to lunge forward while also covering certain aspects of your body. So these transferable skills, if you replace the sword that they're holding with a jab, well, that's a great transferable skill. So being a fencer is a brilliant thing to have. And against the Canelo Alvarez, who is traditionally not that fast of foot, didn't cut the ring off particularly quickly, well, you had a great advantage. Now, as time's developed, Canelo Alvarez has developed some of the best upper body movement in the sport of boxing. And we're going to get to this upper body movement and the angles of that when I get into a really in-depth technical breakdown of Lawrence Okoye's fight against Koznowski. I'm going to discuss something there that could be a key factor of the fight. I'll get to that at a later stage, another date, another video, of course. But the point is, Canelo now is able to draw taller fighters in, or guys that want to maintain range, he's able to draw them in. The other thing, he cuts off the ring a lot better than he did before. You see, one of the things that Canelo Alvarez does very, very well is draw you into areas that he wants you to go now. So unlike the Canelo that fought Lara, who I thought Canelo lost that fight, unlike that Canelo now is able to almost manipulate the choice of movement of the opponent. And I'm going to give you two anecdotal stories, or rather one anecdotal story from my life and one example from another sport to try and explain this to you. So starting off with the other sport, let's talk about football, okay? When it comes to football, let's say you've got one football team, because a lot of people don't even realise, again, how technical and tactical football is. They get how technical it is, they don't get how tactical it is. They just think, yes, best 11 players going out there, you pick a formation and, you know, you go for it. Football's a game of chess, just like boxing. All sport really that's quite tactical has this element to it. Let's say you're a team that's got a very weak left side and a very strong right side, defensively speaking, and you want to usher your opponent to your right side where you feel you can deal with it. There are certain things you can do. When that opponent's trying to play out from the back, they've got the ball, say the goalkeeper, pass it out to the centre back. On your left side, where you're not as strong defensively, you could have a quick press. So your winger runs to their fullback, your left-sided attacker runs to their centre-back, your fullback runs to their winger, and you're basically closing them off quickly. You're man-marking them quickly. What that does is shut off those options for a pass. You purposely don't do that on the right-hand side. You drop off. You give them space. So when that centre-back picks up the ball, turns the ball to go to your left side, and he sees, okay, there's nothing on, everyone's marked, he's going to turn to his own left, in other words, to your right, and pass to the free man. Now, what you've done is ushered that attack to the area you want it to go. Okay, now he thinks, brilliant, I've maintained possession. In reality, it's the defensive team pulling the strings. And these are the things people don't see that are, you know, really important tactically that the average fan isn't necessarily going to pick up on. Well, the same sort of thing happens with Canelo Alvarez. I'm going to give you one more anecdotal example before I go into this. We've got this neighbour, right? He's got this cat, this ginger cat, just like Canelo. And they're dangerous, man, these redheads. I'm telling you, after seeing this cat is, when you look at him, you think he's scared of everything. Crows come by and he's running and hiding, and you're thinking, what is this cat doing? Like, he's just, you know, proper house cat. He's scared of everything. That's what I thought until one day I saw this guy in action. This rat, obviously inner city London, you have rats, that's just how it is, unfortunately. This rat ran across the garden. The cat jumps over the fence, runs over, and the rat runs behind. We've got these sort of garden chairs in the garden sort of like, it's a long chair, like almost like a sofa, but it's obviously for the garden. And we've also got a compost bin just behind it for the gardening. The rat ran behind the chairs and behind the compost bin. The cat can't quite get to it. He's reaching, he can't quite get to it. What this cat does, what a little genius, man. He goes towards the left side of the bin, grabs his paw, hits the bin on the left side of the bin, and immediately moves to the right. The rat, having heard the noise, that bang, thought, uh-oh, he's coming that way, so he ran the other way. So before the cat even saw the rat move, he knew what was going to happen. He hit the bin on the left side, jumped to the right, the rat ran out the right side. You just see this tail hanging out the cat's mouth, and he runs over and takes it into the neighbour's flat, into the neighbour's garden. That neighbour must have been fuming. But the point is, the cat manipulated the rat's movement to take him to where he wants to take him. Well, that's something that Canelo Alvarez is great at doing himself. There are certain things he did in the Callum Smith fight, and I'm going to leave the link to the Callum Smith fight breakdown. The technical breakdown I did, a very deep technical breakdown of some of the things that Canelo Alvarez does. I implore you to watch that to try and understand a little bit more of the sort of intricacies of what Canelo does. But one thing I don't think I mentioned, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think I mentioned it, is how Canelo will he's learned to usher a fighter into a corridor. So as he's moving, say, to his left, he'll take a little diagonal step to the left, knowing that will force the opponent who's on the retreat to move to the right. As he takes that little step to the left and he's cut off that exit, he immediately then throws a right hook, knowing that as Callum Smith's moving to the right, he's going to think, I need to escape to the left. He's cut the ring off on me. As he moves to the left, he's moved into a wide right hook. Well, these are the things that Canelo Alvarez has now developed. So if Billy Joe isn't able to consistently change the angles, consistently get him resetting his feet, so, instead of moving consistently to the right and letting Canelo force you into that corridor where you then got to move the other way, it's that thing that Floyd does very well, where he's almost like sidestepping with his feet. He's and you don't know which way he's going to go. He's moving to the right, then he drops to the left, right, left. And it's a constant change of movement, different looks. And because of that constant change of movement, he can't force you into any way because he can't even set his feet. Now, we know Billy Joe has had some stamina issues. Is he going to be able to maintain that level of movement like he did against David Lemieux for 12 rounds? Well, one thing, the difference is with David Lemieux, although he's a monster puncher and is a one-off puncher, you could say he's as big, if not bigger than Canelo. One thing you'd have to say is that he doesn't have the jab that Canelo's got, and he certainly doesn't go to the body like Canelo has. So as Billy Joe starts to get worn down, and we've seen this happen consistently against Eubank, against Ryder, many times he slows down towards the end of fights. Is he going to be able to survive those championship rounds, that late onslaught? I don't know anymore. If I had to guess, I'd say no. I think Canelo will do enough now. Whereas a few years ago, I thought Billy would do enough. At least officially. I know a lot of you, unofficially. I know a lot of you are saying to me, you got to kill Canelo to get a win on points over there. You ain't going to beat him on points. Billy Joe doesn't have the power to stop Canelo. So in a way, this fight, we know what's going to happen. Fair enough. I mean, I can't argue with that, but that's a whole other story. That's a whole other debate. We're not here to talk about whether, Billy should be, Billy has a chance of not being robbed or not. We're talking about unofficially whether he can win this fight. So I understand a lot of you think there are only three possible outcomes here. Canelo by knockout, Canelo on points, or Canelo robbing Billy Joe. They're the only three outcomes that people think are possible. But that's a whole other debate. I'm just talking about unofficially how this fight could go. I don't know if unofficially Billy Joe can outlast Canelo now. I don't know whether he can do it or not. Canelo's grown. Billy Joe, I think, maybe has declined a little bit. But it could just be because he's not punching above his weight, so to speak. He's not up against an opponent. He fights to the level of his opponent. So because he's not up there against the guy that he sees as a significant threat, he's let himself slip a little bit. I thought he was very good against Martin Murray. But it's not the best I've ever seen Billy Joe. Now, a lot of people will say, well, if you couldn't get an aged Martin Murray out of there, Martin Murray's a tough guy. But there have been other fights too where people have said, Billy Joe's not at his best anymore and stuff like that. Again, I'm going to use the analogy of football. A lot of people make the error of thinking that if you're up against a lesser guy, you've got to knock him out. It doesn't work like that, okay? There are styles that make not just fights, but fighters. Styles make fighters. Again, I'm going to refer to football. Imagine you've got and I'm also going to use tennis as an analogy to explain this. Imagine you've got a defensive team that is capable of beating anybody on their day. They're very, very good defensively. They don't give up many chances. They're clinical and they'll create 2 or 3 chances and take 1 or 2 goals, and they tend to win games 1 or 2-0. They're not a vintage attacking side that's going to go and beat a team 6-7-0, but they're capable of beating any team in the world. Well, what happens is when they're playing a lesser team who's going to sit back, say they're a counter-attacking team as well. They look brilliant, the good team I'm saying, or a counter-attacking team. They look brilliant against other elite level sides playing on the break. But when they're up against a lesser team that's going to sit back, well, all of a sudden those counter-attacking advantages now disappear. So now they've got to make the game. And it looks like they're struggling with ideas. And they do end up winning the game 1-0, 2-0. But they don't batter that little team like another big side will do, beat them 6-0, 7-0, 5-0, 4-0. That doesn't happen. So people assume, they're not as good. But then when that defensive top team play another elite team that's attacking, they beat them. And this is the point. Because Billy Joe Saunders is not a puncher, he's not going to always look spectacular against guys who are not big-time fighters. But his skill set can carry very well against top-level guys. So just because Billy Joe might not be blowing guys away while others do, doesn't mean they're not as good. We've seen this consistently with other fighters, guys. Floyd Mayweather, how many knockouts did he have in the last 10 years of his career? How many fights and how many knockouts? Does that mean he wasn't an elite level fighter? Devin Haney's not a puncher. He's very skilled. Devin Haney's not going to have a massive knockout ratio by the time it's all said and done, I wouldn't have thought. But that's not the only way to skin a cat. So people are sleeping a little bit on Billy Joe's ability here. Billy Joe's a brilliant boxer. Now, whether he can officially win the fight or not, that's a whole other debate. The question is, why is Tyson Fury saying what he's saying? Is it a lack of belief in Billy Joe? Does he simply think, look, he can't do what I did and come back from the abyss and do what I did? Because Billy Joe's nowhere near as bad a shape as Tyson was in. Or is it a case of him finding excuses? Is it mind games where they are confident and brash behind the scenes and they think, we're going to do this guy, but they just want Canelo to underestimate him a little bit? Is it him trying to put a rocket up Billy Joe's arse? A way of manipulating his own friend to say, listen, I don't think you're ready, to make him work harder, to make him train, to make him think, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong, Tyson. What is it? Let me know what you think about Tyson Fury's choice of words. I'm going to do another video now with the same webcam on another laptop. I really do look forward to everybody's feedback on this and, of course, on the content of the video itself. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. God bless.